So welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be doing a Q&A with a LSAT professional himself. Please introduce yourself for us, Steve.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Kameron. So I'm Steve Schwartz. I run the LSAT blog. I also host the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast. And I've been coaching the LSAT for over 15 years now. So I have over 1,000 articles on my site. I have probably that many on my YouTube channel now. And I'm just releasing new information all the time. I've also got books and video courses and one-on-one coaching as well, group coaching. So I try to offer as much as I can for those out there studying for the exam.
That's awesome. So I've been out of the LSAT game for a while. So I'm going to ask you some of the basics because a lot has changed since I took the LSAT in 2015. So if I wanted to start from the beginning and I want to know, what is the LSAT?
So sure. So the first thing you could do is you could go on LSAC's website, the Law School Admission Council, go on there. You can download the free June 2007 LSAT PDF. That's one exam they've released for free. Some people like to do it as a diagnostic just to see how they'll do. Of course, the results are not going to be that great because you haven't learned the basics yet, but that would be a place to start. And the exam itself, it's got logic games, which are like short puzzles. They've got logical reasoning, which are bite-sized arguments. Then they've got reading comprehension, which are passages that initially look similar to what you've seen on the SAT or the ACT. And that would give you a basic familiarity of what the exam involves. It's not a test of memorization. It's a test of critical thinking.
I love that you said that because I say that all the time, especially even with the bar exam. It's very similar in structure as far as intelligence-wise. Now, people always ask me all the time, like, how long should I be studying for the LSAT? What's too much? What's too early? What's not enough? So how long would you recommend for a pre-law student to study?
Yeah, sure. I would actually recommend a minimum of 5 to 6 months in order to reach your fullest potential. Most people only want to spend maybe 2-3 months because they underestimate just how difficult this exam is. And they've also, that's how long the traditional in-person classroom course typically is, because it wouldn't be economical to do that for 5 to 6 months. Most people wouldn't want to make that commitment, but that really is what it takes.
And I know you said 5 to 6 months. So would you recommend someone doing that after they graduate, or do you think that would they be able to do that while they're studying for school, while they're already in undergrad?
Yeah, you definitely could do it while you're in college. And if you can, I would actually recommend it, because once you're out of school, if you're working full time, it's really tough to balance working full time and living in a new city with a new roommate, or you're in a relationship or you have a family. It becomes much harder. While you're still in the academic mindset, if you could maybe take a lighter course load your final semester of college or fall semester senior year, if you can, maybe take 12 credits, 14 credits if you're able, and then treat the LSAT like a 6-credit class, that might make it more doable. So
no, you just mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, some computer problems, but you mentioned fall semester of your senior year. Is senior year like the go-to year to start studying for the LSAT, or would you recommend maybe junior year, or what's like your go-to target area?
That's a great question. I typically find that most folks are too loaded up on classes junior year in order to have the time to do LSAT as well. And most people aren't yet thinking about graduate school. So senior year is when a lot of college students start thinking, I want to do law school, and they typically want to go direct or maybe take a year off in between. And so that's why it becomes senior year. And if you want to go direct from undergrad to law school, you would be applying fall of your senior year and then starting law school the following fall.
And I know like the application process is like a package deal. Would you recommend kind of prepping your application prior to taking the LSAT and then just getting the LSAT sent straight to the schools? Or would you recommend playing it safe and just take the LSAT, get your score back, and then kind of get your application going?
Great question. I would actually do the LSAT first. I would look to do the LSAT ideally in the spring before you plan to apply. You could take it in March or April or June, then work on your applications over the summer, then apply in the fall. And that way, if you need to retake it later, either later in the summer or into the fall, you still have time and you'll still be able to apply towards the beginning of the cycle.
That's great. Now, here's another question I get a lot. When is too late to take the LSAT? Is there ever like a month or like later on in the process where it's just like it's not even worth it? Or would you still recommend, okay, I took it in the fall, didn't do quite well, and I'm going to take it this spring, even though that's within the year that I'm applying?
That's a great question. And some folks do take it in the spring. Some folks do take it in January. And you can do that. Law school deadlines vary. and they are a little bit flexible sometimes because they want to see who else is going to come along. But what's going to happen then is your odds may be slightly lower, and there's less scholarship money available as well. And so if you are postponing or delaying or retaking in the spring, you're probably better off waiting a year and applying that following fall instead. And I know that you don't want to have to wait, you want to go into law school, right. But honestly, it's 1 year is just a drop in the bucket over the course of your entire career. If you get a big discount on your tuition or you get into a better law school, that's going to pay big time dividends. It'll be a big ROI. And so it's worth it if you can.
Absolutely. Okay. Now this might be a hard question, but everyone also asked me this big question I probably get the most is, what's a good LSAT score?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. That's a tough one. Well, the median score is a 151. And so if you're doing anything above that, you're already doing better than more than half of people. Now, in terms of what score will get you into a top law school, if you want to get into a top 14 or a tier 1, ideally you want to get a 165 or above. And that will get you into the best law schools that are worth attending with the most employment opportunities afterwards. Obviously, personal situations vary. Maybe you have other goals in mind, but if you want big scholarship money or you want to get into a top law school, 165 plus is ideal. 160 and above, I would say, is a good score. If you get in the high 150s, that's also okay. That could open some good doors as well. But if you're not breaking 150, you're probably better off retaking until you can. Otherwise, you might be paying full price tuition for a relatively lower ranked law school. And if you want to look at what law schools are worth going to, there's a great resource called Law School Transparency that looks at the American Bar Association 509 reports, showing you employment outcomes and other important information about various law schools so that you're making sure that your tuition investment is well spent.
That's awesome. And that's so important. If I can get that link, and I will definitely leave it in the description box of this YouTube video. So Steve, you mentioned that you have your own LSAT program. So tell us a little bit about how that program works. How did you even come to create that program to make it be as good as it is?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking, Kameron. So it actually happened bit by bit over the course of my career. I started off by creating week-by-week study plans to help people structure their self-study, but people wanted more. They wanted day-by-day study plans. And I was like, I can't tell you what to do. Just divide it by 7. But people kept asking me, so I finally did it, and people loved it. And so that's my top-selling book for studying for the LSAT, just showing you how to use the various 1,000+ articles on my website in conjunction with the actual LSAT exams. I've since released courses. My courses are kind of unique because they include live online classes plus on-demand video course lessons along with the day-by-day study plans. So you can attend class live with me, ask your questions in a group setting. It's kind of like a webinar. There's a chat box. If you can't make it, you can always email in your questions in advance. And I go through the basics as well. So in the on-demand lesson videos, I walk through the basics of logic games, logical reasoning, and reading comprehension, showing you how to do questions by type from easy to hard within each category alongside the actual previously released LSAT prep test. And so that's what I'm offering. It's not $1,000 or anything crazy like that. It's all month to month as you go. You can cancel anytime. And so I try to make it really accessible for folks. And I'm a real person. I'm not the CEO of some major corporation like Kaplan or anything. I'm very accessible to students. I try to reach out to them whenever possible. I do video calls with them one-on-one sometimes. I'll be reachable via email. So I really try to be here for folks.
That's awesome. So which area have you noticed students have a little bit of trouble in over others, or is it not really consistent?
I'd say that games is typically the hardest at first. It's the most unfamiliar, but it's the easiest to improve upon significantly because games are mathematical. Then reading comprehension is the easiest seeming at first because you've done reading comp on the SAT or the ACT, but LSAT reading comprehension is actually much more complex and nuanced than other things you've read. It's kind of like reading a legal case brief in some ways. And so that is much harder to improve upon significantly, but I do have tactics and techniques for that as well. It just takes a little bit more patience. And logical reasoning is somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. Logical reasoning was actually my highest area. So I got lucky there. Reading comprehension, I don't know what happened. It was crazy. So I definitely thought that was going to be my high area. And I was like, oh crap. But so that's awesome that you said that. I can definitely relate to that. Last question. I'm not sure. It's kind of relevant. kind of not. So I know now a lot of schools are accepting the GRE. I believe it's GRE, as well as the LSAT. Do you think, why do you think that they're accepting the GRE? And do you think that's going to overall take over at some point?
That's a great question. I think they're taking the GRE for a couple of reasons. One of them is that the GRE is offered much more frequently than the LSAT is. It's been offered digitally for quite a while now, and it's offered virtually every weekday. And so it's very easy for students to take it. And a lot of students have taken it already if they were considering another graduate program, like going for a master's or a PhD or an MBA. And so the bar is lower for law school applications if you already have taken the exam that you need to take, versus learning a totally new exam that is honestly a bit more scary in some ways. That's one part. The other thing is that there's been a recent significant decline in the number of people applying to law school. It peaked during the recession, and now it's falling a little bit. And so because fewer people are applying, but there are just as many law schools as there were before and just as much administrative overhead, they want to get those applicants, they want those tuition dollars. And so they're looking to get more applicants however they can. The GRE is part of that, but it has not spread that much. Although a lot of schools are now taking the GRE and more are taking it all the time, they're typically taking less than 5% of students with the GRE. So it's not a large percentage of those who are actually going to law school. Do I think it'll grow over time? Maybe, but law schools do want to see that you can do the work. And the LSAT has a stronger demonstrated correlation with first-year law school grades than the GRE does. The GRE, nobody really knows what it's testing. It's got vocabulary, it's got math, but how does that relate to law? The LSAT, it has that critical reasoning built into it. And that reading comp we were talking about, that is way harder than the GRE reading comp and much more like what you're going to be reading in law school.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Thank you for that. Because when I took the LSAT, I didn't have the GRE option, but I still think I would kind of weigh on the side of caution and just go ahead and take the LSAT. I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming on my channel and answering all these questions. If I have any other additional questions, I'll definitely reach out to you. I'm sure people will still have comments down in the comment section below. So thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thanks so much for having me, Kameron. I really appreciate it. And let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Have a great day.